It's bigger. It's louder. It's better than ever. This still isn't your typical motorsports podcast. This is the 10th anniversary of Crush This, a monster truck podcast brought to you by J Concepts. For 10 years, your hosts, the monster truck Canucker Bradshaw and Dan Chichagash, have brought you into the minds and personalities of the monster truck industry. Strap in and hold on tight. This is Crush This!
And welcome to a new episode of Crush This, a Monster Truck Podcast. My name is Bradshaw, also known as the Monster Truck Canucker, and I am going it alone for at least the hosting side of this episode. Our good buddy Dan Chichagash is currently heading back to the Hall Brothers shop from Texas, where he was just at the Texas State Fair around the Austin area for the last couple of weeks, doing rides on the Ram and a ride truck, Ram display, all of that. So Cheech is currently on his way back. He should be back next week. Also, guys, next week's episode is another special episode with Mark Werner, our buddy from MWN Entertainment. Most people know him back in the day as Mark Iron. Good old classic episode. Not too sure who the guest is yet on this one. We will find out shortly, but that'll be next week's episode, guys. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into our episode with RC Racer Mike Bufka. Hopefully I pronounced his last name right. I didn't even ask him at the beginning when we were chatting if I spelled his name right. So couple things here, guys. Go check out Monster Truck Attitude on Facebook and YouTube. Thursday Night Thunder, diecast Monster Truck Downhill Racing. Tomorrow is the registration for Thursday Night Thunder. If you're not on the Monster Truck Attitude Facebook page, go sign up for that. It is awesome. We have our own team, Crushes Motorsports, and hopefully we'll be back in there dominating like we did the last couple of seasons here. We are presented by jconcepts.net, and we're going to be talking about all about the RC stuff today. And J Concepts, they have been just with us since day one. I'd like to thank Fred and Jason from J Concepts. Bodies, tires, wheels, everything RC related you need, they have it. Use our code CRUSHTHIS at jconcepts.net for 15% off all your items. So many of my friends, Cheech, so many other people are sponsored by J Concepts. And, I can't wait to eventually get into the RC stuff and have a bit of J Concept swag myself. Maybe make the Bigfoot Bad Boy 3 body. That's definitely a goal, is to have an RC body of the trucks I've designed. That's a goal of mine. I hope to make that happen. Our buddy Bryce Kenny has his book, Geared for Life, Making a Shift into Your Full Potential. Go check that out. It has been a huge help in my life, Cheech's life. We had Bryce Kenny back on the podcast last year. It was an awesome episode. Hope to have him back on again. MonstersMonthly.com. Go check those guys out. It is awesome to have them on board with us. If you are unable to get these episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, go check out Monsters Monthly. They post these episodes on there for us. Thank you guys to Monsters Monthly for supporting that. Also, Back Channel Productions, Nick Davis of Back Channel, also celebrating their 10-year anniversary. It's cool to be able to be alongside those guys, see what they've done. Nick is a great guy. He's been on this show a couple times. Couple other things before we get to the episode. Next weekend let me look here. Cheat sent me a couple things here. In Enid, Oklahoma at the Chisholm Trail Expo Center, Mega Promotions Tour. Cheech is going to be there in the red Ramunition truck. The first event for Cheech for driving for the year. Go support the Flying Panda himself. Go support Cheech. It is going to be awesome to see him kick ass again. I'm so proud of that guy that he gets to live his dream. Also, shout out Mike Nugent, former crew guy at Hall Brothers. Finally got his chance at driving with Jimmy Cretan's team. Hell yeah, Nuge. Proud of you, buddy. It's good to see friends succeed, guys. I love it. It makes me so happy, guys. But, guys, we have one quick advertisement here. Oh, it'll be March 29th. Sorry, I forgot to mention that, Cheech. March 29th, next weekend. Go or this weekend, actually. Yeah, this weekend. Go support Cheech and watch him kick ass like he always does. And guys, we will be right back. We're going to play a quick ad for J Concepts, and we'll be right back with Mike Bufka. And like I said, guys, we are here with Mr. Brass Ring Fab himself, Mike Bufka. Mike, how's it going, buddy?
It's going great, Brad. Thank you guys very much for having me on here. I'm excited to be here. Honestly, I didn't ever think I was cool enough to be on a podcast, but I'm very happy to be here.
Well, hey, we like talking to people with ties to all around the monster truck industry. You know, we've had plenty of RC racers on here, but you have a really cool back history with the monster truck industry. I was talking to Cheech a little bit before the episode, kind of getting a little bit of background on you because, you know, we've met in person, but we've never really talked quite a bit, you know, because I'm not much. I don't do much with the RC stuff yet. Keyword yet.
You should. It's fun. It is really fun.
That's the plan. There's not. I haven't seen not a lot of much for it around my area, but hey, I might just get something to bash around. But if people don't know who you are, your backstory, and all that, might as well tell some people kind of how you got into this world.
All right, cool. So I kind of grew up in it a little bit. When I was a really little guy, my dad worked for the Bigfoot shop back in the really cool days. He worked there back in the Penda days. He started in 1992. His first project was building Bigfoot 11. Right there when he first started, they had just gotten the lower half of the chassis from Patrick and started building it. And he worked there at the shop from 92, and I think he left there in like 97 or 98. So he kind of was involved in monster trucks in the Penda days, back when all we did was race and racing was life. And, you know, you won on Sunday so you could sell on Monday. And that was kind of the world I grew up in. I was a really little kid, so I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. And he would bring me along to work sometimes. I would get to go along to do some extracurricular events. You know, sometimes he would drive the ride truck. He would drive the Safari Foot from time to time. But for the most part, he was just a shop guy. He was the first machinist they ever had. And I don't know, I grew up around monster trucks and thought that they were cool, and racing and winning was everything. And, you know, later on, I grew up and realized that it is. It really is. I started playing with RCs back in like 98 or 99. I had a Nitro Stampede. I mowed a lot of lawns and, you know, pulled a lot of weeds and shoveled a lot of snow. And I bought that Nitro truck, and man, that was cool. You know, I wanted a monster truck. I wanted to grow up and be a monster truck driver. You know, I was a kid, so I could only do so much. So, you know, buying this little 10 scale Nitro monster truck with a real working engine and, you know, like a 97 Ford body like I loved, and Chevron tires, man, I was tickled to death. I was just as happy as could possibly be. And played with that for a number of years. And then, you know, kind of, I guess my dad left monster trucks, so I guess I kind of left monster trucks too. So as far as I knew, you know, not a whole lot happened after, you know, the Penda days. I kind of missed out on the early days of Monster Jam because I just wasn't really around it. And then Monster Trucks and I kind of went our separate pathways for a couple of years. You know, did some other things in life. Got really into riding bikes and dirt bikes and all kinds of things. And then a couple of years later, doing some job searching, I found myself entering the trades as a welder and started getting into fabrication and welding. That became my main career thing, as I was still racing bikes and going around and growing up and doing things. And then I think it was probably, I want to say like 2012 2017 or 2018, maybe. I was probably bored at work one day, and I was scrolling across on Facebook, and I came across an Axial SMT10, and it blew my mind, man. I hadn't thought about monster trucks in like years and years and years, and I just happened to like see this thing, and I was like, wait a minute. This is that thing that I wanted when I was a kid. This is a solid axle monster truck. It's a Gravedigger. I love Gravedigger. Gravedigger was cool. I remember seeing Gravedigger, and I don't know, it had a tube chassis, and it was cool. And I got like a Christmas bonus or something at my welding job, and I went out and I bought one of those things, and I was just going to kind of play with it a little bit. But about the time, I started kind of paying more attention to monster trucks, I found out there were like a couple local indie shows in my area where I was living in Seattle at the time. And I went to like a state fair show because Bigfoot was there. And I think I saw the twins and all the straight up racing guys. And I was pumped on monster trucks again. And I was back at home and I was playing with this SMT10 and I was having a good time with it. And I started running into that problem that I guess all monster trucks from the beginning ran into, is I started finding weak links just all over the place, man. Those were weak. They had a lot of plastic parts in them, and I started breaking parts like crazy trying to run this thing the way I wanted to. And I was I'm a fabricator by trade. I'm a welder, and I do some machining. So I started making little parts for my SMT10 to kind of beef it up here. I wanted to move the shocks to the axles, and then I wanted dual shocks, and then I kind of wanted to start changing the forelinks, and then I wanted to start adding parts to the cage, and I kept just breaking stuff. And it was kind of a vicious cycle, right? Where like I'd kind of build a few things and then I would kind of break a few more things. And then I would beef up a few more things and then I would break a few more things. And it's just a vicious cycle. And it got to the point where I couldn't add any things to this chassis anymore to make it work the way I wanted to. It just wasn't going to happen. So I was, again, just browsing Facebook as one does, probably bored at work when I should have been working. And I came across, I was in some of the RC groups at this time. So I was in like Solid Axle, Monster Mayhem, and all those groups, starting to make some friends. And I came across Clint Baxley's work. He was kind of the guy building tube chassis at the time. And same thing, blew my mind. I was like, holy cow. Okay, wait a minute. So you're telling me I could just like build it myself. Like I know how to do that. I weld all day at work. Like I can start putting this together. So I started kind of dreaming up some ideas of what I wanted to make. And then I started doing some homework. I started doing just, a lot of research. I was trying to figure out what parts I wanted to start building with. And that's when I started really keeping a close eye on Josh Zimmerman from Freestyle RC. And I was looking at all the stuff that he did. And same thing, man. My mind was blown. I was like, this guy's, kind of mentally a little bit different than me. I want to make something that looks really, really scaled. This guy's kind of performance based, but like, I love the ideas he's doing. And then I was pumped on the products he was cranking out. And as soon as I saw that transfer case and those axles that he was making, I was like, heck yeah, I'm in. So I bought that Freestyle RC transfer case and I bought a set of Freestyle aluminum axles, and I got in contact with Brian Bertoletti over at Bigfoot. He was the foreman over there at the shop, and they had just finished building Bigfoot 18 a few years before, and Bigfoot 21 was still pretty new. And I was experiencing a Bigfoot renaissance and a monster truck renaissance for myself. It was cool to kind of get in contact with these guys, and I just reached out to him and was like, hey man, talk to me about your design process. And we kind of had some mutual friends in common. He knew my dad and a few other people, so we just kind of got to talking. And I just asked him questions about, how they put 21 together and just design ideas. And I don't know, I started making sketches, and then I built this truck right here. This is the first truck I ever built. I built it out of solid rod instead of tubing. And it was heavy. It was a pig, but it ran. It was really, really, really fast. I put a 3S battery, and I did a lot of homework. I do a lot of research when I do stuff. And I was looking up motors and ESCs, and I came across Holmes Hobbies, and I saw their 4100 kV Polar Pro. And I was like, yep, I need the biggest motor I could put in this thing. I need the most juice I could put in this thing. We're going to make it go fast. And I'll tell you what, man, it was fast. But it didn't handle great. It looked great. Didn't handle great, but it was fast. It was really, really fast. So that was kind of how I got started into building these two chassis.
That's cool that you're as a kid around the golden era of monster trucks, in my opinion. Like that's the era that I remember growing up with, trucks and tractor power and USA Motorsports. Like, I often watched all the old Penda stuff. My wife's like, why are you watching the old stuff? I'm just like, you wouldn't understand.
It's the best. It is the best. Army told us the story.
And it's like, I love how, you kind of fell away from it, but it sucked you right back in. And that's the cool thing about this industry is, no matter what, if you take a break from it, you're still gonna find your way back to the love of this. Like it's incredible. And just like, your story, like just, the family connections, and now, all these years later, they remember your dad, and then they're like, oh yeah, okay, and you guys start working together. Talk about, let's nerd out a little bit with that, the Penda era. I got to nerd out a little bit.
Let's go ahead. Let's do it.
Like that. I remember just how outlandish, not outlandish, but like when the 3D bodies started coming out, and the early snake bite, you have the snake bite behind you there, the restored snake bites, and we'll get into that because you have a history with that as well, which is really interesting. What was it like in that era? Like being around your dad and the Bigfoot guys in that era. Like, how special was that?
It was really, really cool because I don't know, everything felt really important because it was, you know what I mean? Racing, like serious competitive racing was the deal. And to be around a team that had the big corporate Ford sponsorship, and to just, be that juggernaut of a team that they were was really, really cool. Because, they won all the time, and that was the coolest thing. I was like, yeah, they did that. That was so cool. Whenever I would get to go hang out around the shop, like that was just the coolest thing, man. I was a little kid, and I would just kind of like take off and just get in trouble. My dad would be busy working on something, and I'd be running around the shop, crawling up in trucks, playing around in the cab and just exploring everything that I could. It was really, really cool. I have a much fonder appreciation for it as an adult, especially now that I'm a fabricator myself. And when I was a kid, I knew my dad worked on the winning team, and I knew that was really cool, and they were the good guys and all that stuff. But I didn't know how much of like a fingerprint he actually had on a lot of the stuff that was innovated in that time. And I don't know, it was interesting how much that technology progressed in just a short number of time, from like 1989 to like 1993. Just the huge technological step forward that they took during that period of time is amazing. When before my dad started there, everything was, it was pretty crude. They were starting to figure it out. They had started running tube chassis, but they weren't very safe compared to today's standards. They had a hard time just tracking them straight. They were still figuring out a lot of the safety stuff. They were still figuring out a lot of steering stuff. And it's interesting now when he'll tell me stories about stuff that they figured out that a lot of teams didn't know back then, that are just, industry standards now. Like they weren't running engine plates back in the day, and, engines were almost falling out of chassis because they were launching them farther than they ever had before. And I didn't know until a couple of years ago that he was, he helped them put together the first set of engine plates in a truck like that. Just a lot of the little stuff that they innovated that we take for granted now. A lot of the suspension stuff, I didn't realize like how much innovation they did of just making shocks. I didn't realize how much engine tuning stuff they pushed along. Recently I found out he helped MSD make the first like low profile distributor for Ford engines. I didn't know they did that. Just a lot of like little things that we kind of take for granted now. He helped them do like the first splined sway bars that they had on monster trucks. It's just interesting, like a lot of the growing pains, going from really primitive stuff like, making bent sway bars like car style versus going to like the splined ones now. It's amazing all the little things that they innovated along the way that we just take for granted now. And that was really cool.
I can't imagine the stories your dad has about when they were building Wildfoot. Like just the innovation in that truck alone. And like I'd love to hear some stories about that, building that truck, and especially I think the Lima, Ohio wheelie run. I think that was Lima at 90. I think 93. Yep. Yeah. I'd love to hear some stories behind that, because watching that, like I was just a little guy, like I was born in 91, right? So, I still remember watching that era, and watching that run, and just being like, me and my dad were just astounded by that. And I'd love to hear some stories about that that truck in that time in particular. That'd be amazing. But
He's got some funny Indy Brass stories too. He was a character.
Oh, that's still the number one bucket list episode for me, is to get Andy on here. Oh, and then get Gene on to talk about the Bigfoot versus snakebite videos.
I would love to know more about that. And I want to ask Gene more questions about that the next time I see him. I think it'll probably be one of our next RC races. Actually, I think he's going to come out and race with us. But getting to work on that snakebite restoration, and getting to hang out with Gene and Lonnie a lot more. I knew Lonnie a lot from when I was a kid, because while Lonnie was a Bigfoot driver at the same time that my dad worked there, they also did a lot of car stuff. They've been car buddies for longer before and after than their time at Bigfoot. So I remember growing up with Lonnie, but we didn't really talk a whole lot of monster trucks, when I was younger. So now, getting to hear a lot of those stories from those guys that were there, there's some really fascinating stuff that went down back in the day. It was interesting times.
You mentioned the snakebite restoration, and that kind of brings us talking a little bit about J Concepts, because Jason Rona was a big part of that. Fred as well.
Yes.
It was originally Make 4 Great Again, the icon Bigfoot 4. Talk about how you got involved with the whole snakebite Bigfoot 4 project, because that was such a cool thing to see. Bigfoot 4 being restored, Bigfoot 8 being restored, two of the most iconic and game-changing trucks, I think, in the industry. And being able to do that with your dad, who worked on those trucks back in the day. And like, how did you guys get involved in all of that?
All right, so the truck has changed hands a couple of times. Jason Rona had it for a little while. Fred Reap owns it now. But basically, they wanted to restore it and to do it in the most appropriate and proper way that it could possibly be done. So they reached out to who better than the actual people who ran that truck, back when it was actually a running truck. So kind of the two main leads on that project have really, been Lonnie Childress and Gene. I mean, we have a huge team aside from them, but those are kind of the two who were both former drivers of the truck and who spent a lot of time working on it, and especially through its different changes that it saw throughout the years. So it's pretty cool. So whenever we need a reference for exactly how something was done in 1991, we have like each of their, huge photo albums to go through. And if we think something is right, usually by the time you're going ready to put tools on the truck, Gene or Lonnie will come in and be like, "Hey, I found a photo album. That's wrong. You're doing it wrong. This is how it's supposed to be." And then we do it the correct way. But yeah, so they enlisted their help. It's a project that has been in the works for a long time, though. I want to say it's like 7 or 8 years since they started actually restoring it years and years ago. They did a bulk of the work out here at Gateway Classic Mustang out in Sullivan, Missouri. That's the shop that Lonnie and Jason Childress own. They do fantastic Mustang work out there. But also we used a big chunk of that shop to work on Bigfoot 4 for what was a number of years. It was a long, slow project, especially when you're trying to do these things right. I kind of came in on the tail end of the entire restoration project. They had done, by the time I got there, they had already stripped it down to a bare frame. The entire thing had been sandblasted and repainted. And I came in during the reassembly part, and we were starting to put it back together. I think when I came into the picture, they already had the axles back underneath it. And I want to say they had leaf springs put back underneath it, but I can't remember specifically. But I started helping again in 21, I want to say it was. I was still living out of state. I came back into town to visit. And while I was in town, my dad was like, "Hey, I need you to come by the house and do some welding. I got something cool down in the shop I want you to see." So I was like, all right. And I got down there, and it was the engine from Bigfoot 4 was just like chilling in the shop. And they needed me to weld up a new bracket so we could put a different fuel pump on it. So we're trying to get the fuel pump right. And I was just like, "Oh, that's cool. That is really, really cool." So I just kind of helped out a little bit on a visit in town. Then I ended up moving back to St. Louis. I was living in Colorado, and I moved back. And then, same thing. They just kind of needed a little bit of help one day. And my dad was going to go help them with something because, occasionally my dad would go out there. They'd work a lot of weekends on it. Occasionally my dad would kind of go help. And then just as they started getting closer to the date and started telling people we were going to be done with it, and, you know how a project is when you announce that something is going to be done by a date, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we just have this, oh my God, this, and this to do. So as the list started, piling up, we started spending a lot more weekends out there working on it. And before you knew it, I was out there every other week or almost every week towards the end. And, just doing more and more stuff. It started out just as like they would bring me in because I was like the guy that knew how to weld pretty good. So I would do the welding work on it. But then it ended up just kind of being a lot of mechanical work, and it's pretty cool. I've always wanted to, get my hands on monster trucks, and I got a chance to really, really get my hands on it, and it was awesome. And then, at the open house the year before last, Bigfoot, we got to debut the fully restored Bigfoot 4, and we got to park it right next to Bigfoot 8. They both had the Racer strap body on it, and man, it was beautiful. That was really, really cool. So as one does, you do Bigfoot, you gotta do snake bite. So that was a lot of work. To me, it felt like just as much work as all the work that it did to get Bigfoot together. But it was a lot more fabrication work and a lot more kind of historical archive work to try and figure out all the stuff to get it right. I did a lot of fabrication work on it. I did the bumpers. I fabricated the fangs. I did the roll bar. I'm trying to think what else I made. I think those are kind of the main things I did. I redid the pedals. What else did I do? I did a bunch of small stuff, but the main things I fabricated were the roll bar, the bumpers, and the fangs. And that was really, really cool to get to do that and to know that, my stuff is the stuff that everybody's going to see. So that was really cool to be a part of that project. And it was really cool to finally get to see Colt Cobra in person. He's a character, let me tell you.
My God, the times that we have had that man on this show, the amount of trash that man talks is absurd.
I'm scared to see him back it up, so I'm going to take him at his word.
I ain't scared of Colt. I'll say it right now. I ain't scared of that man. I ain't scared of him. So I was hey, I wore a Bigfoot shirt on that episode. Okay. Like
you're asking for it, man.
I was, and I backed it up. And like, so going back to the snake bar restoration, especially with the roll bar, because that was such a unique piece of that truck, with the angles that it had. It was like, it was so different to what everybody else had for roll bars at the time. How long did that process take? And going back and forth with photos and history and trying to get it just perfect, because and I can understand trying to nail a retro thing right. When I did the retro Stomper design, Carolina Crusher, and the Monster Patrol designs I've done, like I got so nervous when those were about to be a debut, because I'm like, I know how fickle monster truck fans, like old school fans, can be, because I am one of those myself.
Can be.
Oh yeah. And like I was praying the whole time, like, I hope to God they like this. How was that process, and your thoughts of when that truck was, when they debuted it, and the feedback you got?
So it took us weeks and weeks and weeks to get that done, like between the design and doing all the research and actually putting that together. So it's one of those things where that happened so long ago. They put that thing together in 1991, and we're trying to figure out how exactly it was done. We spent so much time digging through just crazy archive photos that, Gene had and Lonnie had and other people we reached out to had. And we, blew a lot of stuff up and like measured really, really carefully. I had a digital angle finder out comparing up to photos. We're blowing up, trying to figure the stuff out. And then from doing that, we kind of sketched out what we thought it was. But we had to kind of reverse engineer it a little bit, because you have to think like a racing team, right? You can't think like a designer. You have to think like a racing team. You have to think, okay, who are they sponsored by? Okay, they were sponsored by Flowmaster. They probably sent them a box of tubing and elbows for exhaust. What would the angles be that they would have available to them to put this thing together? You got to think resourcefully, right? You can't think like in an ideal world, how would I build this? You got to think what was available to them. So we took a deep dive in the Summit catalog, kind of figured out what angles match up, and we did cardboard templates like crazy, because once you have your angles you want to do, then you got to start figuring out, all right, how do I make this idea in my head jive with this fiberglass cap I have sitting up over here? So same thing, we made this big cardboard template, and we had to trace a lot of angles and just do a lot of crazy mock fit up work, kind of figure out what it could be, ordered in a bunch of parts. And then I had to do a lot of cutting and machining to try and make those come out really smooth. The other thing that sucked too is like, we did not have a working prototype to work off of. I don't know what happened to, we figured out there were probably at least 2 roll bars that existed. There may have been 3, but we think it's at least 2 of them And they are a little different. And that's the same thing too. You got to comb through photos and be like, all right, which one ran more, which one ran on these dates, like all this stuff. But eventually we figured it out. It was a joint effort between me and my dad. We had to fit all the elbows up, trim them down. And since I wanted to do some crazy TIG welding on these, I wanted to do them sanitary style. We had to like face them all off in the mill. And I don't know, we Bufka'd it way too hard, but it came out really, really good. We did. OCD reigned supreme on that day, for sure.
You know, I have.
Honestly,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the hardest part was doing the fangs because the front of the truck is all twisted up. So you got fangs that want to go down and a truck that goes like that. So we made it work.
So are the fangs made of metal as well?
Yeah, they're made out of exhaust tubing.
Okay, and was that how it was
like
on the original truck back in the day?
As best as we know. So that's the other thing too. It's kind of difficult to kind of figure out who might have made it back in the day and who's still able to be gotten in contact to ask questions about. But as far as we know, that was like the resources that were available to them. So that's what we used.
And from what I remember, when the number 4, the Bigfoot, Star Creations made the body, were they involved with the snake bite portion as well, or was that somebody completely different?
Let's see. If I recall correctly, it's a GTS hood. The doghouse is a GTS. We used a GTS cab, and then I believe the bedsides and the tailgate are Star Creations.
Okay, so you're able to source still with GTS, who made the original body back in the day, which I think is really cool that you guys were still able to use some of their stuff. I was going to say the one thing that, I've learned, because in the oil field industry, there are a lot of welders where I've worked with, and it's insane the what they can do. And it's seeing that and what you've done with your RCs. Like whenever I see a picture of what you've been doing, I'm just like, damn. Like especially with the RC stuff, because you're working at such a smaller scale and trying to nail everything. When you're building one of your tube frame trucks, how from start to finish, from design to the finished product ready to run, how long does that usually take you?
I'm going to estimate it's about 80 hours, like 80 labor hours. But it kind of depends on what the truck is and just how into it I want to get. I can usually do a customer truck in about 80, but it's a night here, it's a weekend here. It's kind of little bits. I spend a lot of time on the design and the building of like my own trucks. I do a lot of research to kind of get things figured out. And I'm usually, like most race teams, kind of trying to work one generation ahead on everything I do. So pretty much when I finished this truck, which I think probably took me about a year to kind of design and build, as soon as this one was finished, I was, starting on the design and build of this next one. This is Careless Whisper 2. It's pretty much as soon as you get one on the ground and you start running with it and you see what works and what doesn't work, then it's like, all right, mentally starting to, figure out what I want to do differently on the next one and, kind of move along from there and keep them going along. Because with these trucks that I build, I love to make them look as real as can possibly be. That was definitely my thing for the longest time. If I can make it look just like the real thing, I want to absolutely make it look like the real thing. But I also want to go really fast because I love racing and I'm a competitive jerk at my heart. And I want things to go really, really fast, So when I first built this truck, it looked really cool. It looked as close to Bigfoot 18 as I could get it to be, but it didn't perform super, super well. And I heard a lot of people say like, hey, that truck looks really, really cool. It's super cool that you're running it, but you should get one of these carbon fiber twin vertical plate chassis. Like if you want to race, like that looks cool. Like, I have one on my shelf, or like, I'd love to have one on my shelf, but like, you should buy something you can actually drive, dude. Like quit wasting your time trying to drive this thing. So me kind of being me, I was kind of like, okay, I'll make it go fast. Let's go fast. So that's kind of been my thing the last couple of years is, let's make it look as cool as we can, but also like, hey, these are here to play. And honestly, I want to see a lot more people running these because I'll be honest, I think these can hang with any of the carbon fiber twin vertical plate chassis any day of the week. So let's go. Let's race them.
And I love the detail that you put onto your trucks, with the zoomies and the different exhausts. I remember I got to meet you at World Finals, and I think you let me hold your truck. I'm pretty sure. And I was very surprised, and even some of the other trucks that people let me like check out, like the weight of these, I was very surprised. Like to me, they seemed light, but some of these are pretty hefty.
They absolutely can be. Most of my race trucks, they're kind of scale weight, actually. They weigh about a little over 12 pounds. So if you kind of scale it down to 10 scale, it's about a 12,000 pound truck. So kind of comes out about to be proportionate. The sport mods are a little bit lighter. I actually need to weigh Monster Patrol. I'm pretty sure it weighs under 10. To be honest, I'm not sure. I should probably weigh it.
You know, my introduction to a lot of the RC stuff back in the days was with Josh Rhodes, our good old buddy Dig, and, you know, raced with him in MTM2 and Rigs or Rods. And I remember seeing pictures of his tube frame Digger 7. I forget who made that. This is like years ago. And that blew my mind, you know, and because I know also the love that man has for that truck, for Digger
Right.
7. And most Monster Truck fans love Gravedigger 7 just because of Atlanta 2000. And if you know, you know. That's one of my things. One of my buddies, Marty. I was like, "Hey, Marty." He's like, "What? Atlanta 2000?" He's like, "Yeah." But like seeing just the detail in that in your trucks, like that truck you held up, is that supposed to be number 8?
This one?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That looks like number 8 to me.
Yeah, it's number 8. I built this for Travis Sutton. He's actually getting ready to take delivery of this here pretty shortly. I am so excited to see how he finishes this out. He is a detail guy just like me, and I know he is going to do way better detail work than my brain could even think of. So I'm really excited to see what can be done with this in the right hands as a finished product. I think he's going to do a really killer job with it.
And that was going to be
pretty lucky.
And that was going to be one of my questions. Like, you know, have you, like, because obviously you've done number 8. Have you wanted to do other, you know, style chassis? Because I know you have your Monster Patrol there, you know, and with you working on number 4, have you thought of doing like a retro class number 4 at some point? Oh, you have?
Yeah,
okay.
About it. It's in progress. We're getting there. It's my first foray into leaf springs. I've never tried to do leaf springs before, so this is new ground for me, but I'm excited, you know. I'm excited to make an old technology new again and hopefully see if it works again. Yeah, so we're going to be running this as a retro this season. I still need to, you know, build a roll cage so Tiny Gene doesn't get squashed when he rolls this thing over eventually. But yeah, we're working on leaf springs, and it's a fun experiment. I'm trying to get like a full pack in there. I don't know if it'll show up and you can see it, but yeah, we're trying new things. You know, I always want to try new things. Kind of got a pretty good idea of how to do that, but I don't know. I don't ever want to stop or just, you know, level out with something I want to do. I always kind of want to just try and do something new and something different. And, you know, you look at trends in the hobby and things that are cool. And I think right now, a thing that's trending in a really cool direction is leaf spring monster trucks. Just in general too, right? Like I think we all are kind of bit by the nostalgia bug of older monster trucks right now. I find myself when I just am wasting some time watching a lot of old TNT and trucks and tractor power all the time. And I don't know, when I think about that, I think about 5-ton top loaders and I think about leaf springs and I think about bouncy trucks. So I kind of want to start playing with some bouncy trucks, you know?
Well, and it makes it harder now that Kyle Doyle with OSMT is posting all the epic content. You know, shout out to Kyle Doyle and OSMT. You know,
that's what I've been doing instead of sleeping.
yeah. Like the content that man has produced, and even the stuff he did with Bigfoot with the Vault Edition, you know, and I love if you look on the artwork for that DVD, there's subtle references to Rush, which I think is really cool. I mean, I'm a huge music nerd. There's a 2112 reference on there, I believe. But you know, like let's talk about, I know I mentioned a little bit the Monster Drum World Finals with the RC stuff. Let's talk about that a little bit. You know, that's something that, you know, Bari Masauer has kind of brought into the event the last, however, I think they started doing it in Orlando, I believe, or no, Vegas. I think it was Vegas that they started doing that. Talk about, you know, how you got involved in doing that and, you know, your experience of in Los Angeles.
All right. So last year was the first year that I got invited by Bari to participate in it, and I was super flattered to do it. I didn't think I was a good enough driver. I know I'm, pretty decent at building stuff, but trying to learn how to be a wheelman a little bit more. So I was just flattered to be involved, and I got really, really lucky too. I got to do a truck that I personally really, really wanted to do. I got to do Tim Jones's Tailgater. He's also local to me, and just personally, I'm a huge, huge fan of him and what he goes out there and does. So I thought that was kind of perfect for me. When I was building this new chassis for last year, I was trying to decide what color of powder I was going to have Monster Powder Works shoot for me, because he does the best powder work. And I was trying to decide, I wanted to do something different. And I started thinking, hey, maybe silver. Silver's a pretty cool chassis. What would be a really cool truck to do in silver? And I was like, Tim MF and Jones. That's my man.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going to do. And so I got to do that, and it was really, really cool. I had a great experience out at the World Finals last year. I got to hang out with all of my crew of people from California. We didn't do in Tim Jones fashion. We kind of went out there and wadded the truck up, but that's what we do. The people were entertained. They had a lot of fun, and that's what we're here to do. But it was a really cool event for me, just to kind of be more behind the scenes at a monster truck show. I got to do a little bit of that when I was a kid, but when you're a really little kid, they kind of keep you out of the hot pits as much as they can for safety reasons. So now that I'm a tad more involved, getting to be back in that area during the World Finals was really, really cool. Also too, just kind of getting to see some more monster truck stuff in California, just kind of in general, has been really, really awesome, and something I want to get myself more involved in. I love tiny trucks, but I love big trucks just as much. And I love the smell of methanol, man. I bought a scented candle that's supposed to smell like alcohol. It smells kind of like a race gas, but it doesn't quite get there. But we all do what we have to sometimes.
Like, I remember I got to go to a show at the beginning of the month in Edmonton, and as soon as that first whiff of methanol hits your nose, you're just like, I'm home.
You're like, I'm right. I feel right.
Yeah. Like I still remember one of the only small arena show that Monster Truck Throwdown's ever done is where I live. And one of the I think it was the first year I was doing club help, and Father Time, Kevin Cazala, was driving Bigfoot. And I think he was idling, ready to go out and do something. And I was with it was Greg Whitaker, who was the announcer at that show. And I was walking with him, and we were kind of, the Bigfoot was idling. We walked behind, and I was like, the first time I ever got exposed to like a big whiff of methanol. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
That's too much. That's too much. My eyes hurt.
and yeah. Like that was my first World Finals, that the one in LA, and like, what a World Finals to go to. Like, yeah, freestyle kind of lacked a little bit, but that racing bracket, my God.
The Zach Garner Cinderella story, my goodness, that was something to behold, man. That got me excited. I don't know, for me too, as a lifelong like monster truck racing fan, as much as I love freestyle, which I definitely do, it was really cool for like the main story takeaway from the World Finals to be a racing story. Like that hit me in my heart, and I was really, really pumped on it. And you could tell Zach was too, and it was just all around just great event, and it was my first World Finals too.
Like, that stadium erupted. Like, I've been to some good shows, nothing really, like, I've only been to one stadium show technically before that, which was the Edmonton Stadium show back in 2022, I believe. Right. But like, hearing that stadium erupt the way it did, like, I lost my voice at that moment. Like, I have a video on YouTube, and you can hear me like hysterically, like, oh my God, like, we
all lost our minds.
and I looked on the Monster Jam podcast today. They had an episode with Jamie Dalsing, and they're going to be racing up into the stands this year, from what he said. So
sounds like that should go the other way, but all right.
Yeah, he's like they're not starting in the stands. I feel like it's going to be almost like a J-hook situation. That's what I'm thinking. Like, kind of how what they do.
Find out.
Like, I think they used to do like something similar in the Detroit Supercrosses back in the day, where they would have like a turn right in the stands. So I feel like that's
Yeah.
what they might do. Also, shout out
They
to
used
T
to-
for hauling your trucks to World Finals.
Yeah, that was cool. That was very cool. It was just the way back, though, I think he just return tripped him for me. That's the thing, though. If you're going to have a scale monster truck, you might as well haul it in the real hauler, right? Seems appropriate. But yeah, we're excited. We're gonna be back at the World Finals again this year, so I'm really excited to be there. We're gonna be running as Chris Kohler's Mayhem this year, so should be cool.
Oh.
We got a reputation to uphold now.
Hell yeah. Hopefully at World Finals, somebody will let me take one of their trucks for a little rip. I've always wanted to try it out.
You want to go for it? Want to try it out?
Let's go for a rip, bud. Let's go for a rip, bud.
Let's take her out.
had to pull out the full on Albertan. Oh, let's go for a rip there, bud.
Oh yeah.
You know, and shout out to some of the California guys and girls that do the RC stuff. You know, we had Jessica Dahl and Mike Letcher on a couple months ago. You know, shout out to Jeremy Bunting, a longtime friend. You know, those guys are huge stalwarts, I feel like, of the California RC monster truck game.
Yeah, I was to say the entire California crew is just absolutely solid. Those are my guys. That's my crew. Those are my people. Consider myself to be an honorary Californian. We've kind of been rolling with that, actually. At the World Finals last year, they did announce me as being from California. So I'm just like, all right, cool. My allegiances can change. Let's go. I want from Bigfoot to Snakebite. Why not?
Well, hey, you could be an honorary Canadian if you want. I don't care.
I'm for it. I've had my passport stamped a few times up there.
So, you know, what's next with your RC stuff? You know, are you currently building anything right now? Kind of what's coming up for you with the RC stuff?
All right. So we just wrapped up Bigfoot 8. Actually just finished putting the cowl on it the other night. So that one should be good to go and get out and be delivered. We're working on Bigfoot 4. I've got to get a roll cage put on this thing. And then as soon as it's caged up and ready to go, I got to strip it all back apart. It's got to go to Monster Powder Works to get the chassis and just all my little parts powder coated. Shout out to Keith. He does awesome work. For anybody else that does these or any kind of RC work, if you were looking to get your stuff coated, Keith is definitely your guy to go to. Shout out to him. So we'll have that buttoned up, and we're going to be focused on just racing and going to events for the first kind of part of the year. And then once summer starts, I'll have a pretty free summer. So we're going to do a batch of axle housings. I've had a lot of people ask for my fabricated housings. That was something I started doing a couple of years ago. I was starting to build chassis for people, and I was having trouble with the LMT axles. They wouldn't up travel into the chassis really, really well because of where a lot of the mounting positions and where the steering servo is. So I was like, screw it, I'm a welder. I'll start building axles. So I've started building fabricated axle housings that use LMT internals. I've had a lot of people asking for those, but haven't really had a lot of time to sit down and get a run of those done. So I think for the first part of summer, we're going to try and do kind of a run of those to get those out for the people that are really wanting those. And then I've actually got some older V Cradle Patrick chassis queued up for a couple of people that I'm really excited to do. And we are going to be messing with some more cantilevers now that we kind of have an idea of how to make cantilevers work, I think. So that's going to be kind of the main plan for the year. And then after that, into next year, we'll kind of see if I can get a bunch more axle housings and maybe, bust out a few more of the modern chassis. I'm not necessarily like a business. I'm more of a way too serious hobbyist who makes stuff in his shop at home on his nights and weekends for his friends and acquaintances when he has the means and time to. So I don't always get as much work cranked out as I would like to. Just busy having a full-time job outside of that and racing and other hobbies in life thing, but trying to do as much as I can and kind of trying to do it sustainably too. I don't want to like burn myself out on doing too much work and then kind of hate it. This is kind of a really fun creative outlet for me and kind of gives my OCD a chance to run wild and roam free for a little bit, But,
Cheech is saying,
the main things.
Cheech is saying maybe one HBR chassis.
I did go out there and see a couple of Halls Brothers racing chassis in person. A tape measure may have fallen out of my pocket at some point and landed on the chassis in front of a photo. So I may have some references to Make a Halls Brothers chassis. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes along in the future. Yeah, that's probably something that'll be happening in the future.
Are there any specific chassis, you know, throughout the monster truck industry that you kind of have wanted to do still? Because I know you've done number 8, you're working on number 4. Like what trucks do you kind of eventually want to attempt to build?
Okay, for myself personally, I really want to do a Bigfoot 14. Kind of a big. I'd really like to do a Gravedigger 12. So I remember I was in St. Louis at the Dome show when Gravedigger 12 debuted in '97, and I remember being at the pit party and seeing it. And in my household, we were Bigfoot. We loved Bigfoot. And as a kid, I'm walking over and I'm like, Dad, this black and green truck is pretty cool. So I'd love to do that one. Honestly, my dream build that I really, 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 really want to do is Rockstar. I want it, not the new Rockstar, the previous Rockstar, the indestructible Rockstar. I want to do Bill Kane's Dream Machine. That is on my list of trucks I really want to do. I don't know if I can make it do the things that the real Rockstar did. I don't know if I can make that thing run with the sway bars flipped over and just do no wrong, but we're going to try. That's definitely like on my bucket list of chassis that I'm going to do for sure.
I will say I got to see the new Rockstar finally in person at the beginning of the month, and man, that thing is wild looking. Like it's
right?
Like the height is like compared to the other trucks, it sits so different. Like I could touch the roof standing. Like it's that insane. You mentioned number 14. That'd be something that I'd love to have myself personally. Just with, you know, being Bigfoot Bad Boy number 3, the truck I designed ran on that chassis. You know, that as a
that was the truck value. I spent a lot of time around as a kid too. Like I spent a lot of time in and around 14 any chance I could get, you know.
The first Bigfoot the first Bigfoot truck I got to do anything on was with Kyle Doyle and number 14, and I got to sit in that truck, and that truck for me has a lot of things. Another cool chassis I think would be the Barefoot Belly chassis.
That would be a cool one. I've been asked about doing that. Josh Zimmerman actually did that years ago with Freestyle RC, because with his axles, you could flip around and do the trailing four-link and still make everything work. So he actually did the belly dragger chassis years and years and years ago. I would love to do that one, because same thing. That was one of those iconic Penda era trucks that I grew up around. I just haven't figured out how to make the trailing link axle for the front on that one to make it work with what's available now. Unless I could probably do it with freestyle axles, but that would be a cool one. I love that truck going up.
Another cool one I think would be I forget which overkill it was. Like, you know which one I'm talking about? Like the really oddly. Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Okay, that was Maximum, right?
Yes. That's the one.
Yes,
that'd be an interesting one to do.
With the long stretch cradle and the swing arms, and it's built more like an RC than most other monster trucks, so it is kind of like asking for it, right? It's kind of set up for it. Another one I think is really cool that's being done right now. Sam Elliott's building an Excalibur, and he's got the leaf spring set up and everything, and I'm excited to see that. I'm also just kind of generally excited to see other people building tube chassis besides me. Kind of my main thing is I want these things everywhere, man. We're starting to see like Challenger classes popping up in some different racing series, but like I want tube chassis everywhere. We need more of these in the world. Just everywhere.
She says Excalibur 2 ?
It's the dual shackle leaf spring 4-link one, the one that Chucky was famous for running in all the Thunder Nationals.
I was just trying to think. Frank Scattini's Big Dummy Monster Jerky, the one where he stood up to drive.
Oh, gosh, that would be something. I've had people ask me about doing a Project X before.
Michael Letcher. As soon as you said that, Michael Letcher, like not even like as soon as you said it, bam, that popped up.
I don't think I could buy enough tubing for that,
dude. Project X, like, thank you to Elliot Miller, because if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be as much footage of that truck online. And like, I remember like the glory days of the Monster Mayhem message board when that truck was around. Like that, dude. Project X was such a badass looking truck.
It was different. It was absolutely different for sure. It'd be an interesting one to do, but yeah, I don't know if I can get enough material for that.
Another cool one, since people are figuring out the whole leaf spring thing, would it be like do the OG Little Miss Dangerous / reckless driving?
Yeah, that could, if we could make the leaf spring as a quarter elliptical, that could work. You could do a no problem 2 or no problem 3 as well.
Oh, that'd be badass. Quarter
elliptical. And that's another really, really unique kind of different chassis.
Oh, it was. And how far back that he sat in that truck. Like, if you look at pictures when he was racing that, he was in like the back seat, basically.
He was farther back than a regular Bronco goes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All the way.
And even where the engine sat in that, like, it was like all those weird chassis designs back in the day. Like they were just like, let's just see what happens. You know, when especially when Fred had the front 4 links, that weird setup he had. Ooh, Isaac Ankrum Woodcock chassis. Hell yes.
He loves the Woodcock chassis.
Oh, dude, I got to see the Woodcock chassis at the very first show I ever went to, as the Stone Cold Steve Austin truck and the Shawn Michaels truck back in the day. Like I still think the best ever Woodcock chassis freestyle has to go to Don King. I think it was a show in Missouri. I forget the exact show, but it was on TMB. And that the way that man could wheelie that truck, like, my God.
It's kind of set up for it, right?
Oh, yeah. And just Mike Hedman says Rat Attack would be a cool truck to try.
That'd be a cool, fun, and different one too. We're going with the more unique ones. So these are kind of fun when I get to do some of these older trucks. It's, for the newer trucks, like, it's pretty much you have a format and you can just kind of change things around to make it look, but the geometry is kind of the same. But yeah, when you get into some of these older and more kind of unique chassis, it's like, that's when I got to spend a lot of time kind of trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to make this work and kind of what the designers were thinking when they made it in the first place,
And I find that interesting, the development and I'd love to, just go back in time when they were building those and just sit there and just watch that happen, because that's such a unique part of the sport, especially when Bob was designing number 8, like just the thought processes and, the trial and errors and even in like other motorsports, like NHRA drag racing, like going back from what it was in the early 90s to now, like the technology with the clutches and it's incredible if you really think about, the evolution of all these other motorsports. Like it's insane.
I love the fact that most of those other motorsports had a much more natural and kind of smooth transition in their evolution of figuring out suspension and motor and all this stuff. Whereas monster trucks just kind of were like cavemen. And then, I don't know, aliens gave them intelligence and all of a sudden they had, lots of suspension and they were safe. And it's a crazy thing how abrupt the change was in monster truck evolution compared to all of the motorsports, basically, we kind of just got slapped on our heads and went.
I still think that there needs to be a pro-charged monster truck. That's personally something that I'd love to see, because I'm huge into like radial drag racing and pro mod drag racing, and the pro charger is one of the best ways to go in that. It's reliable horsepower, like a big old pro line Hemi and a monster truck with a pro charger, I think would be badass. Number one, just because like it sounds so unique, with the blower whine, even that does. And I don't think a turbocharged monster truck could really work. Just if you ran
worked for diesel.
Yeah, it works for diesel. But, you'd have to run anti-lag or something to be able to keep your boost up during a run. But it's going to be interesting to see where the monster truck industry evolves, and that's something that I always think about is what's the next thing. You look at what David Tucker has done with T-Max.
Yeah.
and what he's been able to do with that, what Bill Payne's brought to the table with his Rockstar. It's going to be interesting to see in the next 5 to 10 years where this industry is going to go. Where do you think it's going to go?
I don't know. I've wondered quite a bit about that myself, and it seems like the last couple of years we've really just been kind of patching weak links has been kind of the main thing, right? It's just because these days trucks need to be durable and reliable, right? Like that's it, right? It's just durability and reliability. So it's just been patching weak links to figure out what they can do to keep trucks going through shows. You've seen people really starting to beef things up. We're starting to see like billet champagnes now. We're seeing stuff like Bill Payne's 6-gear planetaries come out, and they've just really the last couple of years been really working on beefing up all the components that take the bulk of the abuse and what these trucks go through. We're seeing really finally well thought out and engineered chassis designs, through people like Eddie and CRD. They're actually designed by people who design race chassis, and there's really no wasted space or tubing in them. Everything's gusseted really well. Everything's supported. They don't have dead tubes anywhere. You can tell they're meticulously designed. As far as where things go from here, I think it's going to be mainly reliability issues. I think EFI is going to get a lot better. I don't know, but I'd be interested to see if we do see other things like possibly hydrogen power or something like that. I know some teams were looking at hydrogen power as possibly a thing. I don't know. I'll be curious to see where they go, but I think the main things are just going to be safety and reliability, really.
And yeah, you mentioned the hydrogen, and Jacob Smallwood in the chat mentioned about the hydrogen truck is pro charged, and that's going to be interesting to see when that they start doing testing with that and the reliability of the hydrogen and the pro charger. Yeah. I think that's going to be a cool thing. And you know what? And I'll say this. And this might rub people the wrong way, and I don't really give a crap.
For it.
Bigfoot with their electric truck, I think is awesome. I, as an autistic man myself, I love the sounds of monster trucks. Personally, I don't wear earplugs to shows. My wife gets on me on that all the time. But I think for kids that love monster trucks that have autism, where they're more sensitive to sounds and everything, that is the coolest thing ever. I think Bigfoot changed the game with that, and I feel like that's something that also can be explored even more. You look at
I was saying the only thing really holding that up, I feel like, is batteries and just the battery technology available to us at the moment. I think if we do see a bigger step forward in battery technology that could be used in that platform, that could be pretty darn viable.
And I think it'd be a cool option for, like I said, those kids that love monster trucks or people that are sensitive to sounds that love monster trucks, that they can still enjoy that and have fun, and I'm not saying, ban internal combustion engines. I'm all about horsepower and loud noises and burnouts and just obscene amounts of just badassery. But I think there is a time for electric monster trucks, and there's a place for it. And
yeah, 100%. I agree.
And like I remember when Monster Truck Throwdown we had the electric Bigfoot at the Detroit Auto Show, and people were shitting on it left and right. And I'm just like, guys, like, look at the potential of this. Look at how this could change. But... Oh yeah, I remember when Jim Cramer did they were at a car show, and they were able to do a car crush in the building, and he was mic'd up and talking through the whole process. And I think, that is so cool. And
that's rad.
and I think with the right people behind it and the right research, I feel like an electric truck could be competitive with a blown alcohol truck at some point.
They make more power already. Yeah, it's just really a matter of the reliability of battery technology just to keep it running, But yeah, the motors are already capable of more power than we're getting out of the alcohol motors,
Yeah. Well, as we wind this thing down, I just want to say thank you, Mike, for coming on. It was awesome having you on. Definitely going to have you on again with Cheech, and learn some more stuff. Is there any social media that people can follow you on?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I have a Brass Ring Fab page on both of those. And I pretty much just post pictures of stuff when I'm building them. So they're kind of sporadic. Sometimes they're late at night. They're usually on weekends. It's just whenever I'm down there and I think something's neat, I snap a photo or a video of it, and I go ahead and put it up there. Also, too, check out Off Track RC. We're going to be doing some YouTube stuff this year as well. That's our replacement for Trigger King. That's kind of our main racing series down here. So definitely go check them out on YouTube. We're going to be doing some really cool stuff with them. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. That's where I'll be this year.
And guys, check out Cheech this weekend, Enoch, Oklahoma, March 29th. He is going to be competing in the Red Raminator, his first event of the season. Go cheer on the Flying Panda. Go cheer on our buddy Cheech. Cheech, you're going to kick some ass, buddy. I can't wait to see the footage. Next week, guys, our episode is going to be with Mark Werner doing an old school episode. Not too sure who the guest is on that one, but it'll be an awesome episode. Mark is very knowledgeable about the old school stuff, brings a ton of research, tons of pictures. It's awesome to have Mark on board with us as a part of the Crush Disc family. And guys, check up on your friends and family. Mental health is a very important thing. I've been sharing my mental health journey on my Facebook. Things are a little uncertain right now. Not really. Technically, don't have a job right now because it's slow season in the oil field. So just trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. But guys, if you're struggling or anything, reach out to somebody. It could save your life. There's hotlines. We don't want to lose you.
988 here in the States.
Oh yeah. And as Cheech always says, donate blood. It could save somebody's life. And, just thank you guys for all the 10-star likes and reviews on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, all of that. Thank you guys for 10 years of this. It has been amazing to be able to say that we've been doing this podcasting stuff for 10 years.
That's cool. That is very cool. I'm a big fan of what you guys do here, Brad, and thank you very much for having me on. It's great getting to talk with you.
Oh, definitely, Mike. And, as we always have said since day number 1, 10 years ago on this podcast, guys, get the rubber side down and the shiny side up, everybody. Peace.
See you.